And good evening, everybody, depending on what time zone that you're in. Welcome to a brand new Twitch show from Goodman Games called What's Coming Down the 5e Pike from Goodman Games. I am going to be your host, Chris Doyle. I am the director of 5e development and design for Goodman Games. You guys probably have seen me on a couple of other Twitch shows, so I shouldn't be a stranger. This show is going to be a little bit different. We are going to pull back the curtain and we're going to talk about what we got coming down, literally coming down the pike, as far as new products and where products are in our pipeline, if you will. And we're going to have kind of give you a little glimpse of where we're at with everything. Each week I'm going to have a different guest, and this week my special, I shouldn't say week, let's say each month. This is not going to be a weekly show. This is going to be a monthly show. Things don't change that much for it to be that interesting. So my guest this week is Ben Hayward, and Ben is our lead. All right, we are back. Sorry about those technical snafus. Things are going crazy around here. It is like 50 degrees and raining where I'm at in New Jersey. And my special guest, Ben, who I was introducing before we lost him, just at the perfect time, of course. He's coming to us from Canada. So, Ben, why don't you say hello to the folks and why don't you introduce yourself? Oh no, did we lose him again? Did I lose you, Elena? I can hear you. I've lost Ben. Okay. All right. All right. We're sorry, folks. Technical problems with the interweb, as our producer likes to call. Ben looks like he's here. Everything looks good. So I'm going to quickly introduce Ben. Ben's coming at us from Canada. And Ben, introduce yourself quickly and tell us everybody who you are.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't die on me. Don't know the cause of those troubles, but anyway, yeah, I'm been working editing with Goodman Games for 3 years now. Worked on Horror in Blackwood Forest, which is coming out shortly, the 5th edition fantasy line. I've had a couple of the other 5th edition fantasy adventures. Caves of the Unknown is one that I worked on. Some of Empire of the East, 5th edition. Um, I got my start in Dungeons and Dragons, or as we like to call it, the 5th edition of the world's greatest role-playing game, back in about 2008 with Cobbled Press. My first credit was alongside Skip Williams and Ed Greenwood and Keith Baker there on Wolfgang Bauer's publication. But in about the intervening decade, I moved away from professional Dungeons and Dragons, just kept it as a hobby, and instead worked professionally as an editor in international affairs journalism, creative writing, magazines, and so eventually I made my swing back after having quite, built up my professional editing resume. So now when I'm on this side of the submission desk working with Goodman Games.
Great. Excellent. Well, welcome to the show. Since this is our premiere episode, let me kind of go over the premise of the show and kind of explain some of the things that folks are going to see. So again, this is a monthly show. We're going to be kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit here and showing you guys where we're at with our 5e product line. We're very excited about all the different things going. We're going to be showing some graphics off and everything. So this show is called Coming Down the 5e Pike with Goodman Games. Or I should say it's called What's Coming Down the 5e Pike. So we like that for a lot of different reasons, and I'd like to explain them in a couple of minutes here because I love the double meanings of different things. So the pike refers to three different things. Obviously, there's the medieval weapon, but less obviously, folks who live in New Jersey, there's this funny kind of slang term that everybody says, "Oh, what exit off the turnpike do you live?" So I get that all the time. By the way, the answer to that question is I live off of exit 7A, if people need to know that. So I like it for that reason. And then the last reason, we have a mascot, and the mascot is a fish called a pike. And most folks who know me from my other shows know that I used to be, and I still am, an aquatic biologist by trade, before I joined Goodman Games. So I always like to kind of bring fish into things and everything. And we thought it would be really cool to have a mascot for this show. So that's why we went with the mascot. And we had to come up with a name with him. And so the name I decided to come up with him is Captain Christopher Pike, because we're all Star Trek geeks. Again, I'm a Star Wars geek, but I think I think folks understand where that's coming from. So that's kind of the backstory of everything for a setup for our show. It looks like we lost Ben again. Okay, so all right, so it looks like. Okay. So we'll give this a shot again. So unfortunately, Ben is having some serious internet connectivity issues. So I'm going to have to fly solo on this episode. So we apologize for that, folks. First premiere episode, these things are definitely going to happen. So I kind of gave you guys the premise of what the show is going to be. So the next thing I'd like to reveal to you is a really cool graphic. If the producer, Elena, by the way, you folks can't see or hear Elena, but I can. She's the one that's pulling all the strings, truly behind the curtain, if you will. And she's going to pull up our graphic right now that's going to show us the status of all of our 5e products that are in the pipeline right now that you guys can see. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about them. So the chat is open. So if you guys have any questions in the chat, feel free to use that, and I'll try to keep up with that as I can, kind of flying solo here. I would like to answer a couple questions real quickly. First of all, no, or number 6 is not out yet. I'm going to get to that in a second. Second question, which I know is going to come. No, we have not announced what ore number 7 is going to be yet. So, and the third question that I always get is, no, there will not be any PDFs for any of the ore books because our license with Wizards of the Coast doesn't allow us to do PDFs. So, if you're busy typing those questions right now, I've already answered them for you. So anyway, so we're taking a look at this graphic here. So this is everything that we have, what we like to call in our pipeline right here. These are all the projects that I'm kind of juggling right now that's been going on. I've been working on most of these since August and last fall. And then we got a nice little bar graph here to kind of show you where everything is at. You will notice there are no dates on here. We're not going to be specific with this thing's coming out next month because there are just too many variables. We don't know. When we send something off to the printer has printer delays. There's shipping delays. Ships get stuck in the Suez Canal and then everything kind of comes to a grinding halt, and that affects like the whole world. So we're not going to actually predict things. We are going to give updates on like when things actually do hit stores and whatnot. But so as you can see, our first product at the top of the list there is ore number 6, the Temple of Elemental Evil. And you can see green bars all the way. So we have green bars, we have yellow bars, and we have like no bars. So if you see a green bar, that means that particular task is done, complete, and we've moved on. If you see a yellow bar, that means that task is still ongoing. So we're in various stages of it. We might just be beginning it. We might be further along on it. And then if you see the black bar or no bar at the end, that means we haven't gotten to that stage yet. And you'll see for all the different projects, you'll see that there are various stages that everything is in. So you can see that ore number 6 is all the way out. It's at the printer. It is physically at the printer. And by the way, the printer needed to, this book is so big, 732 pages, I think, that the printer had to order more paper because they don't normally keep that much paper in stock. So basically, we already ran into one little delay in that regard. So always very comforting when the printer says they don't have enough paper to print your massive book. So we're excited about that, actually. The next project that is on our little chart here is 5th edition fantasy number 18, Horror of Blackwood. And you can see that that is all the way through and into layout. That will be actually finishing up in layout very soon. And then that will be going off to the printer as well. So that one is actually pretty close. Our next project on the list is Crypt of the Devil Lich. This is the Kickstarter that we ran a couple of months ago. This one now, a couple of months ago, if I would have showed you this graphic, is actually would have looked a little bit different because we were done with a couple more things as far as the editing. However, our Kickstarter was really, really popular. And then we decided to add a bunch of additional material, additional pre-generated characters, a whole additional level. So that actually kind of pushed us back. And then we had to actually kind of redo that project a little bit. So we kind of went backwards a little bit. But it's going to be worth it. We have the entire lost level has been submitted. If you back the Kickstarter, you got the update, I think a week ago or so, that showed the maps of the lost level laid out. And this was a lot of fun for me to do because we did it just like we did the original Crypt of the Devil Lich. We had a different author do each room. We had 8 rooms in the lost level. And then they sent me the rooms, and then they sent me the maps, and then I assembled the level just like I did back in 2004, in 2005. So that was a lot of fun, and we got a really, really excellent selection of encounters for the lost level. So we are working on that. Those are in editorial right now. And they're almost finished up. Actually, after I get past the convention this weekend, we'll be diving back into that, and then that will be going into layout in earnest. We're still working on the DCC conversion of that, but then that will be hopefully off to the printer, I would say soon-ish, and hopefully we're going to be on track for our delivery, which is, I believe, November, if I remember that correctly. The next thing I want to talk about is Dungeon Denizens. This is our huge, massive book of monsters. We were going to talk about this quite a bit. We're going to talk about it a little bit more on the show, but that was the whole reason I kind of had brought Ben on. So, I'm going to get back to Dungeon Denizens, but I can report that the writing for all 500 monsters is complete. and everything is submitted, and we're still playtesting some monsters, and we are in editing. We are almost out of editing. This is a project that we have never worked on a scope of this size before, working with 500 monsters. So this one's going to take a while. A lot of moving parts with this, but and I'm going to get into that a little bit more after I finish going over the chart. Um, Project Free. So this is another one of those things where if I would have showed you this chart a month ago, Project Free would not have even been on here. Free RPG Day is coming back this year, and we will be supporting it with a 5th edition a book. And literally, I just started working on that last week. I've conceptualized it all out. I've outlined it out. I've even started the maps and the stats, the monster stats. It's a very short module, so that one will probably be done in a week or so, and then that'll be off the editorial layout, and we have actually a pretty hard deadline on that this summer to get that in so that we can get that distributed this fall for Free RPG Day. So stay tuned for that announcement once we see that. I believe Free RPG Day has a website. If it's not live, it will be live very soon. And I see a question from 20 Sides Every Story. Hey, Alex, how's it going? No, this is actually not the first Free RPG Day 5e module we've done. We did FEF number 14, I believe, was Free RPG Day. That was Beneath the Keep. That was a sly little tie-in with Ore number 1, an unofficial tie-in with Ore number 1. The Keep on the Borderlands and Into the Borderlands. And then actually FEF number 5 was also originally released as a Free RPG Day module back in 2016 or so. That's Into the Dragon's Maw. So this is actually the third one. So that project, it's literally those bars have just been starting to be colored in, but that will move along very quickly because it's a very small project. Dark Tower, we announced a couple of months ago at GaryCon. We are past the concept stage with that, and we are into the writing. If I wasn't getting distracted with so many other things, we'd probably be further along on the writing on that one, but I'm actually working on the conversion with that. It's moving along very nicely. As Janelle mentioned during our other seminar at GaryCon, there are a lot of NPCs and unique monsters in that book. And yes, I will give that the wholehearted thumbs up. There are an immense number of stat boxes that I have to put together for that. So my early work with that has been converting those to 5th edition. And starting to do work on some of the maps and some of the additional material that we'll be working on that. So it doesn't look like we're very far in that project. That project I will probably be working on most of the summer. That will probably once I get Crypt of the Devil Lich kind of finished up from all the other authors, that will probably be the primary thing that I will be working on. The next 2 projects, we have Project Fatigue, love that word, and Project Buy or Sell. These are 2 small FEF modules. These are the thin little 24, 32 page modules. Both of these are fully written. They are through playtesting. I've actually playtested one of them fairly extensively. The other one is getting ready to go into playtesting. It's not quite there yet. And they're in various stages of editing. So those books are not going to take long. I'm anticipating that they are probably going to hit stores sometime later this year. It probably depends on how some of these things fall out with some of the larger projects, but obviously there's a lot less moving parts with these going on. And in the last project that I am actually very pleased to announce, although I don't have much information on it yet, we are just calling it Project Stomp right now, but this is going to be a very large book, and it's going to require a team of writers. And I am literally, I've just assembled the team this past week, and we are having our kickoff meeting to start continuing the brainstorming, but we have, I have a lead writer on it, and I'll probably be doing some work on it as well. But that's about all that I can talk about this. You're going to get a lot more information about this project as we come along down the pike. So stay tuned for that. But all I can tell you is it's going to be another big fat hardcover book, and it's going to be awesome. So very excited about that. That's another reason why we wanted to do a show like this. We want to be able to kind of tease some of these projects that we're working on, and we really want to to kind of let people know what's coming, because that's the important part. A lot of times, back in the day, back in the 70s and the 80s, you didn't know what was coming until you walked into your store and it was there. So we're gonna try to do something a little different. So all right. So and I do apologize, we lost my co-host, so I'm flying solo here, so you're just gonna get one person talking for a while. So I want to talk a little bit about Dungeon Denizens. That was going to be our main theme, what we're going to talk about. So each of these episodes, after I go over the chart and kind of give updates on all the projects, then we're going to do a deeper dive in on one of our projects, each month. And this month, we wanted to do Dungeon Denizens. So this is our big monster book, and it's a monster of a book, over 500 monsters, both for 5th edition and also for DCC. So and right off the bat, the market is flooded with monster books. So what's going to make our book different and exciting? I'm going to tell you. The first thing that we're doing for this book that nobody else can do is we have been able to cull almost 300 monsters from previous Goodman Games projects. These are, a lot of them are from the old 3rd edition and 3.5 edition books, some of the 4th edition books, some of the 5th edition books that we've already put out. We've collected monsters from all of those books, even a couple of DCC monsters that were in the dice tubes, if you remember the dice tubes. So first of all, nobody else has access to those monsters, and we obviously do. So you're getting almost 300 of those monsters, all updated for 5th edition, all culled and cultivated and smoothed out. We've tweaked them a little bit, brought them in line, checked them over, made sure the CRs are right and the attacks looked good and everything. So that's the first part of it. Then the rest of the book, over 200 monsters, brand new, monsters you have not seen before. This was an exciting part. Over 100 of these monsters are from our new freelance writers that we did an open call late last year. And we brought a bunch of, we reached out and we contracted with a bunch of freelance writers, and this was their first assignment. So there was 13 of them, and then we had a couple of other authors, myself, a couple mainstays from Goodman Games. So all in told, there's 18 authors that have contributed to this book right now. I'm just going to throw that tease out there right now. There might be more. So that's the first thing. So over 500 monsters are in this book. Not only do we have the stats, we have some pretty evocative lore. We've been working very hard with the lore on this. We're going to have suggested encounter groups. We're going to have notes on treasure. We're going to have new spells and new magic items that kind of tie in with the monsters. We're going to include those all updated to 5th edition. We're going to have tons of appendix with lists for all of the challenge ratings, terrain, type, all those good things that are typically in a book. And I would like to share some of the artwork. I literally got artwork in this morning from Doug Kovacs. Everybody knows Doug. So we're going to pop up some of that artwork right now. And literally, I just got these, and no one else has seen these before. The artwork in this book is all going to be color. And so that's you're going to get about 500 color pieces of artwork in this book. So the first thing I want to pull up the giant slash wing bat, if Elena can pop that up on the screen and you guys can see that. So literally I was talking to talking to some of the guys, and there you can see that popped up there. Once I reminded them that we were doing this show today, they were like, "Oh, hey, some of the artwork's starting to come in," and it's like, "You should show it off." So literally, we kind of scrambled around, and we grabbed that artwork and we got it, and this is the first time that folks are seeing it. So the next piece that we're going to look at is the Bronze Reaper. So Elena can pull that up. That would be great. And you guys are very familiar with Doug's style, so there you go there. Nice huge construct. Actually, I kind of like the Bronze Reaper. We've got two versions. We've got like one version of the Bronze Reaper, and then we've got kind of like an enhanced version of the Bronze Reaper. Both of these critters were originally from 3.5 edition books that we did. And then the next one, if we could pull up the Black Yeti, please. So the Black Yeti was actually from one of our 5e books, one of our Arctic inspired 5e book. And that I'm trying to think. That was FEF number 9, maybe 10. I can't remember exactly. And I don't think the Black Yeti actually got artwork before now. So you can see. So basically, it's kind of an augmented, kind of an enhanced, if you will, Yeti. But it's kind of fascinating actually to have, Yeti. Everybody thinks white, so it can blend in with the snow. A Yeti that's all black and sticks out like a sore thumb in the snow has got to be one bad bleep Eddie. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. So, and then the last artwork that I want to pull up is the fungal construct. So we're gonna pop that one up. This is one that I actually created for a tournament module. I believe it was DCC 52 or maybe 53. One of the last DCCs before we switched over to fourth edition. And that's where it got its premiere, and it has all been updated to fifth edition. I'm glad that we got an opportunity to share some of that with you guys. This was the part of the show where I was going to we were going to do a back and forth, and I was going to talk to Ben and have him explain the editorial process. So I told you that we had 18 authors for this book, but we also have 3 editors for this book, and we actually hired 2 new editors, fifth edition editors. I hope to actually bring them on for another one of our next episodes, so they can actually talk to you, because they got a chance to edit. Each of them got a chance to edit about 200 plus monsters, and it's funny because they have their favorites that they have, and I think they want to talk about their favorites. So I think it'd be really cool to bring them on, and they can kind of talk about the editorial process, and then they can also kind of share some of the fun things, things that they kind of discovered going through this process and everything. They have been busily editing along for 2.5 months right now, and like I said, they are about 95 or 96% done. We have a massive Google sheet that we are using basically to manage the editorial process. So the sheet has the monster name on it, the author, the type, the CR and everything, and then it's got room in there for them to put their notes and when they actually get it. So we assign them the monsters, they actually edit them, and then they put comments in and everything, because they're not just looking for mistakes, they're actually editing for some of the content too. And one of the directives that we gave when we set out to do this project was we wanted the editors to be engaged in it, and if there was something that they thought, both of these editors are gamers just like we are, and we said, if there's something that you think can enhance one of these monsters, we want to hear about it. We want to make these the best monsters possible, and sometimes a collective approach to that is a really good way to do it. So if you have some of the old third edition books, you might notice that we might have added a special ability to the monster. We might have added a bit of lore to it or something, or expanded its lore. That was by design. We were really trying to curate these monsters and really kind of make them very usable at the table. And we had all sorts of cool things to talk about that. And unfortunately, our internet connection didn't let us. So sadly, that's not a case. I do want to talk a little bit about playtesting. So one of the things that we get to do is, in addition to all these, not all the monsters need playtesting, but there's definitely a high majority of them do require playtesting, because a lot of times we're creating new rules, new special abilities, and we want to see how they actually work at the game table. So we've kind of had a multifaceted approach on how we're doing the playtesting process for this. So the first approach is, some of the authors of those 18 authors, they playtested some of their own monsters. A lot of them actually wanted to playtest them, and when we hired them for the assignment, one of their first questions on many of them were like, "Hey, can I playtest these in my own game?" And we were like, "By all means, yes." And so we collected the feedback from them after they did their playtests, and we actually made changes based off of that. And all this is tracked in our massive Google sheet, which is kind of cool. So we can see what monsters we flag, which monsters we felt needed playtesting, and then once they got playtested, we were able to track that. And then once they were done out of playtesting, we move along to another one. We got to playtest. I personally playtested several of these monsters, both in the Crypt of the Devil Lich playtest that I did last fall when I was converting that to 5th edition. There are several monsters in there that we are actually presenting in Dungeon Denizens. And then also, I've done several online games the last year and a half about, where I was actually able to play test several of the monsters as well, including the 5e team tournament that we have. If you're not aware, as you can see, Dungeon Con online is going on this weekend. We have our very first 5e tournament, team tournament. And some of the monsters in there are from Dungeon Denizens, so they've already been play tested from for our tournament standpoint, but they're going to get further play testing this weekend. And the last playtesting that we're doing is, and this is really where I wanted to have Ben talk to you. If Alana, if you can pull up the screenshot of the Gladiatorial Arena. Ben has been playtesting. There we go. We got a nice screenshot there. So he came up with a really cool idea on playtesting monsters, where as he says in his own home campaign, he opened up the old gladiatorial pit, and that was a perfect setting to run monsters against either other monsters or against characters to test out some of these new innovative rules. And Ben had a whole list of things he was going to tell you about, and unfortunately, he's not here to do that. But I would like to let people know that several of those events are being offered at Dungeon Con Online this weekend, and I think there are still tickets available. I think there are 3 slots. So if you are interested in joining the playtest for this book, you can actually do that this weekend. You can actually head on over to Tabletop Events and check out the listing. Um, and you can actually jump in the arena, and you can actually experience some of these monsters for the first time. And in everybody who does that, we're going to collect the names, and we're going to put their names in as official playtesters and everything. So we're pretty excited about that as well. And that's awesome that seeing that. Yeah, that's exactly, it's wacky. It's one thing to design a monster, and there's no way to know if it's going to work and if it's a CR. Everybody knows that the CR listings, there are kind of formulas that are out there, but until you actually see it in action, you don't know if it's CR5 or CR6. And it's one thing if it's, you can argue over a monster. Is it CR5? Is it CR4? Is it CR6? But we want to know, is something really off? Is that CR1 half? Should it really be CR2, or should it really be CR4? So that's really when you get into the nuts and bolts of it. And the only way to do that is to get some of these critters to the table. Some of them are very straightforward. Like I said, they don't really require that much, but some of them are actually pretty complicated and do require quite a bit of attention. All right, so I think we have the cover art that I can show you. So if you can, Lena, if you can pull up the San Julian artwork, it's got like the lizard dude on it. I want to show that off first, and then we're going to get the other. So as we mentioned, there's going to be 2 versions of this book. There's a 5e version of the book, and then there is the DCC version. So this is most likely going to be the cover of the DCC version of the book. A nice classic, it just exudes 70s and 80s appendix N style and everything. Is gorgeous piece. That little thumbnail doesn't really do justice to it. So that's the one cover art that we have, and we revealed that a couple of months ago. I think I revealed that the very first time when we announced this book back in, I believe it was last November. The other piece of cover art is by Errol Otis. So I guess if you could swap that out, that would be great. And this is fascinating. So I got to actually kind of pitch this to Errol, and I made a suggestion, and I was like, I wanted it kind of like the first edition monster manual, where there was a collection of a bunch of different monsters that were, some of them were underground, some of them were up in the air, some of them were on the side of of the cavern wall. And he came back with this wonderful piece of art that really kind of captures that, and I love it. It's just so colorful, so vibrant. But the coolest part about it was, so I sent him descriptions of several of the monsters, and I said, just feel free to use any of these. I said, but feel free to just come up with your own as well. So I think he designed 3 or 4 from my descriptions. The rest were not designed. So I got to basically take that cover artwork and design a monster statistics based on the actual artwork. Very, very, very cool. And I had I had a lot of fun with that. And if you can see some of those monsters on there, crazy kind of things. Several of them don't have mouths. The one little green kind of guy above the elephant guys looks like an invertebrate, and doesn't really have mouth parts or anything. So it was a little bit of a challenge. But it was a lot of fun. It was very, very rewarding to actually just take a piece of artwork and just kind of really kind of think about design, from that side. Normally, us designers, we create a monster and we start with the statistics, and then we come up with a description based on that, and then we send that to the artist, and the artist draws it. And sometimes they even get to look at the statistics and kind of base it off the statistics. This was very different, and doing it this way, but it was fun. It was a fun exercise, to be able to go through that and actually kind of really kind of get into the artist's mind. What was he thinking with designing this? So we were able to do that. The last thing I want to talk about, and I apologize, this is going to be a little bit shorter of a show, but as I mentioned, if you're just tuning in, I lost my co-host due to internet issues, so I am flying solo here. So if you have any questions, I still see a couple of those. Yes, those dudes do look like they'd be right at home at the Mos Eisley Cantina. There's somebody who knows I'm a Star Wars fan. Sadly, I could probably name too many of the aliens in the Mos Eisley Cantina, but yeah, that's kind of the thought that we were going with. We just wanted a collection of a bunch of critters, kind of in that first edition style. I think Errol definitely pulled it off, and who doesn't like Errol Otis artwork, especially on a cover. So the last thing I want to talk about, I want to show you, talk about a little bit about the design process. So as I mentioned, we converted a lot of these monsters from third edition, but we did not just grab the stats and convert them. We really put some thought behind them, and really tried to bring them up to speed for utilizing the 5e mechanics. As you know, 5e mechanics are very different than the third edition mechanics. Third edition was very, very much a miniatures based game where you needed to have a battle mat, and you can do that in 5e, but you can certainly do more theater of the mind in 5e. But we really took these monsters, took some of these concepts, and some of these were from modules that I had created, and we really kind of brought them up to the next level, if you will. We leveled them up basically. But one of the ones we were doing, so I was creating a bunch of frog folk for one of the very first FEF module had frog folk in it. We can't call them bullywugs. And so I created a bunch of frog folk, and while I was going through converting a bunch of these monsters, I was converting the frog folk. And on obviously we were in the middle of the pandemic, and we were couldn't do a whole lot out there, but we were going for walks. My whole family, we were going for walks a lot. And my son is, as many of you folks know, my son's an avid gamer. He just graduated. He's graduating from high school actually in another couple weeks. Got his driver's license, turned 18. He's an adult now. Anyway, so we were talking, and we got to talking about the frog folk, and he thought it would be kind of cool if they had a mount, that we could use. So I was like, well, like, what do you mean I have a mount that we could use? And he's like that the frog folk could be mounted on. And I said, oh, well, I did that in my module. It's like I have them on giant mosquitoes. And he said, well, what about something else? And during one of our walks, we actually were walking by a local little pond, and we saw a bunch of water striders. And if Elena can pull up the water strider picture, most people, I don't know if they know what water strider bugs or water bugs are, but they're these cool they're actually beetles, and they actually skate across the surface of the water. And I've seen these all the time, again, aquatic biologist, and instantly my son said, that's what the frog folk could be riding. And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, wow, imagine a bug like that, but the size of a pony, or the size of a horse that could skate across the water, and then frog folk could be on it. And so the next thing I knew, my son and I, we were talking about this for the whole rest of our walk. And we were kind of coming up with the backstory and the lore, and then it's like, oh, it'd be great. You could have a frog folk paladin, and he could actually summon them out and everything. And then I love the concept so much that I actually let my son design it. And actually he actually helped with some of the conversions. Last year he was going to get his first job, and obviously, you know, we weren't doing jobs and stuff like that because of the pandemic. So I actually enlisted him to actually convert some monsters from the third edition, and he actually created this one from scratch. And I showed him how to do it, and we you know we discussed the lore and everything, and it was fun. It was a great experience. It was one of those things that, yeah, the pandemic sucked and everything, but there were a couple of good things that came out of it. And now we've got a cool monster design. I get it; it's just a giant beetle, but we put a lot behind this guy, and we've kind of tied him in with the frog folk. So there's a whole bunch of frog folk in the book. And now there's you know, the giant beetle, and then I'm going to go back to the module that I'm working on that I was playtesting these guys in, and I'm going to add an encounter that's got the we call them swamp striders. We're going to add that in there, where there's going to be the basically the charge of the swamp strider brigade, where the frog folk mounted on the back are going to, with their light lances, are going to, you know, skate across the water towards the PCs when they're in a boat. Fascinating stuff. So just wanted to share that story with you guys on just some of the thought that we're putting in to this monster book. You know, this monster book is it's going to become a labor of love once we get it into layout and with the artwork and everything. But we're going to be really proud of this book at the end. So we can't wait to get it to you guys. It's going to be a while though. Be patient with us, but hopefully as we move along in the next couple of months, you'll see the bar graph will be turning green, hopefully on all of our different stages, and then before you know it, we'll be telling you that it's off to the printer, and then, you know, hopefully have an estimated date of when it's going to be out at stores and everything. So with that, thank you guys. Thanks for coming and checking out our show here. I do apologize for the technical issues that we had. You know, obviously those were out of our control. We tried several times, which is why we got off to a slow start there, but once it didn't seem like it was working out, you know, we decided to go to Plan B. So thanks for listening to me rant for a while. With that, I want to say a huge thank you to Elena. She's producing the show and everything. She did a great job as always. And you know, she's going to be behind the scenes on a lot of the shows this weekend. So everybody be safe and enjoy Dungeon Con Online. And I'll be seeing you guys. Tomorrow night, real quick. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I'll be doing a stream with Rick talking about the Temple of Elemental Evil. We're going to be we're going to show a bunch of the layout pages and a bunch of the artwork. So that's going to be at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. And then at Sunday night, we are coming back at you with a Talking TSR episode. We're in a slightly different time. We've pushed back to 9 p.m. Eastern time because we've got other streaming shows going on. So be aware of that. And our topic for this week is we are going to be pulling out the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide, and we are going to do a delve through that, which is going to be absolutely exciting. So with that, I'm going to say good night to everybody, and everybody have a great time at Dungeon Con Online. Take care.